one of the conditions will be that you are to have no contact with minors. So if you're standing in the store and there's a kid in front of you, or you're on your way to work and you encounter a child, then you have to have a plan of action.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mandalorians, we're about to watch the parole hearing of, well, I think you probably have an idea of what his offense is just by the photo used here in this YouTube parole hearing. But in case you didn't put two and two together, it's that he likes the little ones. Now, some of you might recognize him. It's even possible that some of you have seen his hearing before. And no, this is not a re-upload. This is an update. Now, if you've already seen the hearing, then you can go to the description and click part 2. But if you have not, then I advise you to stick around to watch the whole thing. So with that, let's jump in.
Hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Hunter Bowman, inmate number 443543. He is serving a sentence of 15 years jail, 2.5 years to serve, followed by 13 years of probation for possession of child pornography second. As of today, records reflect the parole eligibility date of May 2nd, 2024. There was no victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows the offender has completed the following programs: the short track sex offender program invoices, utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system. This offender's overall score falls within the moderate range of risk for recidivism. If a sex offender, utilizing the static 99R, the offender's overall score for sexual offense recidivism falls within the low moderate range. Mr. Bowman, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you should be granted parole. You may begin.
I would like to be given the chance to get out and begin furthering my treatment. I have experienced success with the DOC mandated programs that they've had me do here, and I would like to get out and be able to continue on that success and do everything possible to get back to life, get back to being a productive member of society, get back to the family and get their support on top of all the others.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Bowman, for that opening statement. Much of what you mentioned in your opening statement is our desires for you. You know, we want to keep people that we consider bad people inside the prison, but those who can actually learn from their mistakes and avoid these behaviors in the future. Yeah, we can gauge, I guess, a little about their change, their level of change, and hope that when they return, that they learn their lesson, and when they go back out in the community, then hopefully they will not commit any more crimes. Your offense is very concerning to me because, one, the length of time that it incurred, that it occurred, not, and the fact that you admit that you have some attraction to the things that you're reviewing on the internet. So you've taken a short-term program since you've been in there. Were you able to identify anything that would help you avoid these behaviors in the future?
A lot of what the short course program covered was about self-policing and not allowing fantasies to become realities. And it also covered just how much the actions I was taking were re-victimizing and creating new victims.
Mm-hmm. Very good insight. That's good. So how do you avoid, so you avoid doing this again in the future by understanding that when you look at this or distribute this kind of thing, you are victimizing another person who didn't act, they can't approve or consent to doing this kind of thing because they're not old enough to do that. So when you go out into the community, things are going to be very, very different for you. You understand that?
Yes.
And so your ability to be around children and things of that nature, go to a park, to a mall, to a movie, all that stuff is really going to be different. How do you think you're going to handle that? I hope you don't say I'm just going to stay in the house.
I hope to handle it by leaning on the family, by looking to the family for support and spending most of my time doing things with the family. And
do you intend to work?
Yes, I have work lined up as soon as I leave.
And so what happens if you're going about your day and you come across a child? What are you supposed to do?
If I come across a child, I do absolutely nothing.
Well, you can't. So if you're standing, if you know that one of your conditions, because you do have probation file since it's a long time too, one of the conditions will be that you are to have no contact with minors. So if you're standing in the store and there's a kid in front of you, or you're on your way to work and you encounter a child, then you have to have a plan of action. So whatever you are going to get at that store either needs to be put back, you remove yourself from that situation so that you're not violated. And then maybe once the child is gone, or then you can go back in. But you have to think of situations just as simple as that. You know what I mean? Where you're in close proximity to children, or, what happens if someone says, oh, wow, that's Mr. Bowman. Did you read about what he did on the internet? How do you handle that?
The idea of someone saying that, oh, I saw him on the list. And everybody who is important to me in my life knows exactly where I am, exactly what I did to get here. Mm-hmm. Anybody else that decides that all I am is based off of the fact that I am on the list is not someone who will be important in my life.
But you do realize that there are stigmas associated with people that are considered sex offenders. And people will know, they have every right to know that you're in their neighborhood, and they may treat you some kind of way. And so you have to understand that things as they were normally in your life are not going to be the same when you return. So I just want you to be aware of that, because I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm trying to tell you that it's going to be difficult. And so it's important that you have a plan in place. Sounds like you have the support. You need to do a little more planning, because different things will occur that you will find yourself, like birthday parties or, it's so many weddings, you never know. Things that you'll have to turn down because you don't want to be violated, or you have to get permission for. I did see that you were looking into getting your CDL. I do know that this is your only offense. And I did read the PSI where your sister was in support of your not even spending time in prison, because you guys have already suffered a tremendous loss. And I apologize. My condolences for your loss. And she just wants you all to be a family again, which is rare, but I'm glad to see that she's still there and supportive. I also see that you didn't receive any disciplinary infractions. You've taken the appropriate programming. And I also know that you have to appear on the sex offender registry for 10 years?
I actually have not been informed of that. No one has told me I have to be on it for life.
I didn't say life. That thing.
No, I
You
was
know
saying
how
that.
long? Okay. For 10 years, I believe it. Yeah, I couldn't find it either, but I know that he has to be on there. So are you okay with an officer going through your phone, or you're not being authorized to be on Facebook or Instagram or Chat Now or Me Too or whatever those things are called? I don't, what is it, Snapchat? All that stuff, you know?
Yes, I was on pretrial supervision for over 2 years. And for the first year, I wasn't allowed any internet access whatsoever. And for the second year, I was allowed to have a cell phone, but the officer could confiscate it at any time and go through it at any time.
Okay. And do you have any problem with, I heard you talk about continuing treatment, and I'm assuming that you have your own private physician in line or something lined up, but you'll also have to do it in the community until they feel that you've successfully completed the program. So you don't have any problems with that either, right?
No, I welcome any and all treatment.
Okay. All right. Ms. Palmieri?
Thank you. So, Mr. Bowman, the chair touched on the fact that you'll have treatment in the community, and you mentioned having done some in pretrial. And I read that you found that treatment to be very helpful. What were some of your takeaways from that particular treatment?
From the
treatment with Mr.
pre-process-
Hobson.
Mm-hmm.
with Mr. Hobson. That was largely to do with I was still dealing with the older sister's death, and I was just in a tailspin from that, and it that was the contributing factor that pushed me so deep into the addiction that I ended up getting caught. I was just so out of touch with reality anymore. So directly after the search warrant was served, and I started treatment with William Hobbs, it was largely about understanding why I was doing it and who it was harming, and it was mostly, for me, it was understanding why I was doing it.
Okay. And do you understand why you're doing it? Do you have because I also read that you were using the pornography to meet your emotional needs. So what I'm getting to is, have you been able to develop what we would call a relapse plan, some aspect of a plan, so that when you find yourself, as you put it, going down a rabbit hole, that you'll be able to stop yourself, have somebody else that you'll be able to reach out to as a monitor?
So please.
I did a relapse plan with the short course program here with Melissa, and largely the overall relapse prevention portion of it is that everybody in my family knows what I'm dealing with. They'll know exactly what my conditions are. I can go to any one of them if I feel that I'm struggling, that I need help, and they'll make sure I get the help. And then I also have I was dealing with the probation officer before, so I'm hopeful that whichever probation officer I end up with, I'll be able to go to them if I need help as well.
Yeah, very good. I got from reading the summary from your treatment at the facility, it appears that although you were kind of reserved, as they said, you did gain some valuable insight into what your behaviors are that led you into viewing the pornography. Do you feel that's true?
Yes. In the group with Melissa, that she was talking about a lot of the emotional reasons, and the biggest emotional factor that seemed to be for me personally was a feeling of lack of control in my own life, and
Okay. And I'm going to say that you and Melissa worked on a plan for how to manage your emotions a little bit more closely in the community.
So I hadn't done the treatment with Melissa, obviously, until I got here. But like I said, between the search warrant and the sentencing, I was in the community for roughly 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd already developed an understanding of how to prevent myself from relapsing, what I needed to do in my life to keep myself away from going back there.
Mr. Bowman, I did read your pretrial treatment. Seems like you were very committed to that. And like I mentioned earlier, the summary from your treatment at the facility indicates that, for the time that you were in, you were committed and you seem to have benefited from it. So I wish you well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Palmieri. Ms. Chance?
Yeah, so, Mr. Bowman, would you say that during the 3 years that you were in the community prior to your incarceration, when you were meeting with Bill Hobson, that helped you to have a better understanding when you participated in the short-term sex offender program?
I think it helped my understanding of what we were looking for in that program, and it definitely helped me be willing to delve into what was going on with me, and rather than just being stuck at being unwilling to admit that what I had been doing was so terrible.
I think she referred to it as you were in the action stage, right? Action stage of change. Because you took full responsibility for the offense and you did show some remorse, right? And I know that a couple of the things that you worked on with her, I thought she did a very good assessment of where you are today. You seem very reluctant to share, but I believe you have acquired a very good knowledge of what was going on with you and where you are today. And she described it, and I'm not going to go through it because it's like 2 pages, but the final analysis that you have certainly, identify the age group that you are actually sexually attracted to. And you were able to work through that and express your thoughts and feelings about that. And then you were asked to identify a high-risk situation for you when you go back in the community. And you said that it was being able to access the internet. And so I believe you're going back home to your parents.
That is the plan, yes.
Yeah, and they're aware that they have to have some restriction on their access to the house internet.
Yes, they'll keep me on the straight and narrow. If it comes down to it, they won't have internet in the house if that's what they have to do.
I just need to say, Ms. Bowman, you're 28 years old, look a lot younger. But just from what I've read about the treatment that you've done prior to your incarceration and your 12-week short-term sex offender program, that you have done well in the program and that you have a good treatment plan for when you go home to follow through with all the areas that you have identified. And you have the support of your family. Okay, so I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Ms. Chance. I think that Mr. Bowman is an appropriate candidate for discretionary parole. I think that he would benefit from the higher level of supervision prior to his starting that 10 years of probation. Hopefully that he can complete it successfully. Of course, he would have a restriction on pornography and be stipulated to participate in problem sexual behavior treatment in the community, and they would be monitoring his electronics, and he would know internet. Yep. And he would not be able to have contact with minors without the parole officer's permission. I heard the officer say his eligibility date was May. Was it May 1st? May 2nd, which means his date would be today. Are there any objections to that or those conditions? Any additional? No. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, me too. With regard to Hunter Bowman, 443543, I move that he be granted discretionary parole on or after today's date, June 10th, 2024, with the following conditions. In addition to the standard parole conditions, he is to have no contact with minors without the parole officer's permission. He is to be, his electronic devices are to be monitored with enhanced monitoring. Also, he has a restriction on pornography, and he will participate in problem sexual behavior treatment in the community. Did I say everything, ladies?
Yeah, you did.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All in favor? All right. Mr. Bowman, congratulations, sir. You've been voted to parole. You'll receive this in writing. We wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
What we're going to do is I'm going to watch the old Mandoo give some commentary, and then I'll cut in. I just want to hear if I still agree with what I said back then.
For Hunter Bowman, date number 433543.
I think what bothers me most about this interview is the complete lack of understanding of the issue that they are dealing with. It's as if they have zero understanding. They are talking to him as if he is someone who has control over what he's attracted to. In the conversation, they said, you know, we saw that you have in your therapy that you were using this, you were looking at CP to meet your emotional needs. So what are you going to do to move forward? You know, well, I know you're going through a difficult time in your life, and that's why you are doing this. And it's like, no, he's doing it because he's attracted to children. He will always be attracted to children. It's how he's wired. You can't fix it. Which makes it even more insane that they have a 10-year, just 10 years, where he has to be on the registry. This is a lifelong disease. He is never going to not be attracted to children.
I agree.
My understanding.
No, I agree. You're right.
From what I've seen, from the studies that I've seen, I don't know why this parole board doesn't have access to those studies. You would think in Connecticut, with all their brilliant PhDs in academia, that they would know something that has been known for years.
They are pretty smart there, yeah.
But instead, they perceive it as just like something that he did as a mistake, or something that could be easily fixed by some programs, by therapy.
Programs are pretty good.
I thought maybe he actually understood his problem more than they did, and they just weren't getting at it. You know, to his credit, I think he seems to understand that he does like children. I think.
Yeah, no, he likes them.
He's a moderate range. How do you release anyone who's a moderate range, who's not a low risk? Not that the risk score makes any difference.
Actually, moderate to low, Mandoo. Moderate to low. Low, moderate.
And then, you know what I really, really pissed me off? And this is, we see this so often with this Connecticut parole board, but it was Miss Page who asks him a question and then gives him the answer that she needs. So what are you going to do to make sure that you don't do this again? And don't tell me that you're going to stay inside the house all day. And it's like, I mean, this is a parole hearing. That's inappropriate. You can't give the answer you don't want to hear. You need to wait for him to give the answer. And he still didn't give. He's just like, I don't know. What did he say? I'm not going to go. I don't know. It was basically the same answer. You can't do anything. This is what he's into. It's very simple. If it's like if I woke up in a George Orwell book like 1984, and it was in this, and all of a sudden they're like, Mandoo, you can't look at women. You're gonna go to the park, and there's a female there, and an adult female. Just imagine I was single or whatever. You can't talk to them. You have to go and turn away and walk away. If you're in a supermarket and there's a woman there, you got to go out, wait till they leave. But in 10 years, don't worry, in 10 years, no one's going to be supervising you anymore.
You know what? I think I get the point. Mandoo. It's funny. I kind of bore myself. I don't like watching myself. Most of the time, I don't watch myself. If I did, I probably would never publish anything. But what do you like more? You like Mandoo with the beard or without the beard? You all have to let me know. Let's see. Can I do a side by side? No. But anyways, look. The static 9.9 risk score at a low to moderate puts him at a, let's see, at a chance of recidivism. So he has a moderate to low risk. So he has a 3.4 to 7.4% chance of recidivating. This is the data that all 50 states use. So surely, as Dr. Grande says, if there's one thing for certain, it's that we would never see Mr. Hunter Bowman again.
So under charge 1, under weapons, on 3/7/2025 during an unannounced home visit, a metal sword and metal knife were found in your bedroom. You were the sole occupant of that room, and at no time did you have permission to use, possess, or control those weapons. Your actions violate your signed parole agreement. Charge 2, under search, on 3/7/2025 during an unannounced home visit, you admitted and signed a written sworn statement that you have been using an unmonitored electronic device to access the internet and view pornography. You further admitted that you destroyed this unmonitored device by burning it in your wood stove. Your decision to destroy this evidence denied your parole officer the ability to search that device, and you therefore did not submit to a search in violation of both your signed search condition and your signed enhanced internet and device monitoring condition. Charge 3, restriction on pornography. On 3/7/2025, during an unannounced home visit, you admitted and signed a written sworn statement that you've been using an unmonitored electronic device. You further admitted that you had been using this unmonitored device to search for pornography in violation of your signed restriction on pornography condition and your signed CTPSB treatment agreement. Charge 4, enhanced internet and device monitoring. On 3/7/2025, during an unannounced home visit, You admitted and signed a written sworn statement that you had been using an unmonitored electronic device to access the internet and view pornography. You further admitted that you had destroyed this unmonitored device by burning it in your wood stove. Your decision to destroy this evidence denied your parole officer the ability to search that device, and you therefore did not submit to a search in violation of both your signed search condition and your signed enhanced internet and device monitoring condition. Charge 5, problem sexual behavior treatment. On 3/7/2025, during an unannounced home visit, you admitted and signed a written sworn statement that you had been using an unmonitored electronic device. You further admitted that you've been using this unmonitored device to search for pornography in violation of your signed problem sexual behavior treatment condition and your signed CTPSB treatment agreement. Subsequently, you were unsuccessfully discharged from CTPSB treatment due to your behavior.
The state has filed the following exhibits, starting with Exhibit A, P.O. Hudabenko.
Exhibit A, the parole agreement. Exhibit B, remand to custody order. Exhibit C, notice of parole violation. Exhibit D, parole violation report. Exhibit E, parole and community services statement. Exhibit F, CTPSB treatment agreement. Exhibit G, CTPSB unsuccessful discharge letter. Exhibit H, BOPP decision information summary. Exhibit I, photo evidence.
Counsel, did you receive the notice of parole violation report, and the other documents that were just marked for identification purposes?
I did, thank you.
Today, we have no witnesses. At this time, the state will have an opportunity to make a short statement and testify with respect to probable cause and the severity of the allegations. P.O. Hudabenko?
Sure. So I would just say, with the disclosures that Mr. Bowman made, and specifically with the unsuccessful discharge letter from his problem sexual behavior treatment, he continues to pose a significant risk to reoffend based on these behaviors that led to his remand. He intentionally and purposely destroyed his cell phone, denying my ability to search it and potentially destroying criminal evidence as well. This in and of itself would be enough of a criminal behavior, but when taken into account that his instant offense mirrored this same behavior when he broke his phone and threw it in a dumpster when the police department called him back to his home, just shows that he continues to try to obscure his behavior and obscure what I can't tell whether or not it was criminal behavior or not due to his actions. So I would just say he continues to pose a significant risk to reoffend in the community at this time.
Thank you. Counsel?
We're not challenging probable cause today. My remarks are addressed to the issue of whether continued incarceration is necessary. So while I agree that, Madam Hearing Officer, you can find probable cause for the violation, there are several points that I would argue do not merit continued incarceration for Mr. Bowman. First, he was released on parole in July of 2024, and the behavior that occurred didn't start until November of 2024 by his own admission. It's important to note that, and there's no reason that the parole officer necessarily would have had this information, and certainly not reflected in the documents, but I think it's important to consider that he encountered a significant amount of stress in November 2024 when his mother filed for divorce from his father, which happened to be on the eve of Thanksgiving as well. And he had gone about 4 months without any issues regarding viewing pornography. And that's when I think the stress kind of led to what's brought us here today. That's point number one. Point number two, and this is very important, is that the only reason this came to light is because Hunter himself brought it to the attention of parole officer Hudabenko. He did it on his own. There wasn't any information that any law enforcement personnel were aware of. He voluntarily disclosed what he was doing. And that takes us to the third reason that's very important to consider, which is that he wanted to get additional help for the problems that he was having. In his own words, he wanted to lean into the treatment, and he recognized that by viewing pornography, even though it was just adult pornography, there was a restriction on his ability to do so. And he recognized that it wasn't something he was supposed to be doing. So he destroyed the cell phone, not to hide information from his parole officer. I understand Officer Hudabenko's concerns about that, but there's no evidence that he was looking at anything other than what is otherwise legal pornography. And because he recognized that he wasn't supposed to be doing that and wanted to get into treatment more, and get everything that he could out of it, he recognized that one of the steps would be to avoid looking at it. And the best way he knew how was to just get rid of the medium that he was using. And then, of course, he admitted on his own, without any prompting from anyone else or any suspicion by Officer Hudabenko or any other law enforcement personnel, he voluntarily admitted what he was doing. I stressed the an additional point, which was that it was just adult pornography. There's no evidence that he was looking at any illegal images. And additionally, what the reports say that have been introduced at this hearing is that when he was incarcerated for approximately 16 months on the underlying conviction, that his behavior within the DOC was exemplary. I'm quoting that word from the decision information summary, page 7 specifically. He has now been incarcerated for close to 2 months. He was taken into custody on March 7th. It is now April 28th. And given all the circumstances, I would respectfully argue that further incarceration is not necessary. I do want to make one additional point that may not be specifically relevant to the issues we're dealing with today, but I still think add some important context, which is that Hunter was first exposed to pornography when he was 3 years old. He lived in a house with older people, and suffice it to say that that's what happened. So at a very, very young age, he had his first encounter with pornography. And he has described an addiction that began before he even hit puberty, when he was of elementary school age. This was something that he was dealing with and grappling with. So it's very easy to look at him now at his age, that he's an adult, and to recognize that what brought him to the DOC is not something he should have been doing. But I think it's important context to remember as to how he got here and why he got here. And despite having never been convicted of an offense before, he served his first sentence beginning in March of 2023. He was released in July of 2024 with exemplary behavior. He was doing well for 4 months on parole until November, when the issue of his parents' divorce caused an amount of stress that caused him to do things that he knows he was not supposed to do. And ultimately, when he had concerns that it was heading in a direction he didn't want it to go, that's when he destroyed the phone. But given all of those circumstances, I respectfully argue that the amount of time that he has already served on the parole violation is sufficient, particularly because his maximum discharge date is June 7th. And so if this matter is continued for a final revocation hearing, I know it can be up to 60 days. That could potentially take us beyond what his maximum discharge date is. I do want to briefly address the weapons. I recognize that was a violation as well, although I addressed the other issue first, because I think by all accounts that would be the primary violation. The sword that was found is a decorative sword. The edge measures 1/8 of an inch. It's the type of instrument that's designed to be exhibited on a wall. It's not designed to be used as a weapon. And certainly the knife that was found, there's no allegation that Hunter has ever used it to hurt anyone or threatened to hurt anyone or attempted to hurt anyone. It was a knife that was found in his bedroom. And in the grand scheme of things, is certainly a violation, but not one that would otherwise require continued incarceration beyond the time he's already served on this violation. So for all those reasons, I would respectfully ask that the hearing officer determine that continued incarceration is not necessary given all the facts about this case.
Thank you. Pio Hudabenko, anything further?
Yes. First to regarding the unmonitored phone. I can appreciate that he was dealing with a difficult family situation. That is something that Hunter and I discussed at length. But it does not forgive his behavior. It doesn't condone his behavior. It's not an excuse for having an unmonitored cell phone for, by his own statement and his own admission, for the entire length of supervision. Whether he was looking at pornography or not for the entire length, he admitted that he was using it for the entire time that he was on parole. I wish that he had asked for this help that counsel is addressing before he decided to destroy evidence, which he knew needed to be monitored. Had he disclosed that phone prior, it could have been a different discussion. But he went as far as to admit in the statement that he was ready to look up child sexual abuse material when he disposed of it in the wood stove. And again, due to his actions in that destruction of evidence, I can't confirm whether that search occurred or not. He may be behaving well in prison. I have no doubt of that. But his addiction is causing him to destroy evidence and obscure his behaviors multiple times now, between the instant offense that got him incarcerated the first time and now while on community supervision. So again, his risk to reoffend remains high, and that was pointed to in the evidence in his unsuccessful discharge letter. His sexual treatment scores for risk to reoffend and to recidivate increased exponentially with the findings of not only use of an unmonitored phone for the entire length of parole, but then also destroying that phone. He did admit to using that phone, again, unfortunately, after he had chosen to destroy it. But much of that admittance came with the knowledge that there was a polygraph evaluation that was scheduled, which would have, I'm assuming in Mr. Bowman's estimation, brought that evidence to light anyway. Regarding the weapons, the statute for the state of Connecticut, it defines the length of the blade for what a weapon is, not the edge length. He doesn't need to use the weapon to violate that condition. It's the possession of that weapon. And those were found in his bedroom. And again, he admitted to having those. So in regards to whether this length of sanction is adequate or not, Mr. Bowman, he and I have spoken at length about this. He has 10 years of probation supervision to follow, which I hope that he is more successful on and able to treat the addiction that he is clearly suffering from. But I would argue that the term of incarceration that he has had thus far is not adequate to address his behaviors. And again, respectfully request that this parole term be revoked so that he has an opportunity on a lengthy period of probation supervision to hopefully be more successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel, anything further?
Yes, just to be clear, we're not suggesting that Hunter had a justification to do what he did. We've acknowledged that there's probable cause. The point is that the full picture has to be considered when deciding what the appropriate punishment is and whether continued incarceration is necessary given everything that we know about this. With that in mind, I would argue that it's important for people in Hunter's situation to be given an incentive when they're having problems to proactively deal with their problems. Hunter did so by telling his parole officer what was going on. He absolutely should not have destroyed the phone. I wish he hadn't, because then Officer Hudabenko could have gone through it and presumably would have seen that there were no illegal images there. But if we're going to encourage people in Hunter's situation to seek the help that they need, the best way to do it is to not punish them too severely when they do so. He has served about 7 weeks as a result of his admission. That's punishment. The question now becomes, is more punishment necessary, particularly given a relatively a release date that's coming up in a few weeks, followed by 10 years of probation? And Hunter will have a significant period of jail time hanging over his head if he violates probation at any point during those 10 years. And so while there should be a punishment, it's also important to remember the context in the sense that Hunter brought this to parole officer Hudabenko's, he told him about it. And we have to temper the punishment with an acknowledgement that Hunter did the right thing because he was having problems and wanted help for those problems. And so I think in light of that, it's not that we're not saying he shouldn't be punished. It's just that he's been punished severely enough given what the conduct was and given the fact that he affirmatively raised the concerns that he had.
Thank you. P.O. Hudabenko, anything further?
I appreciate counsel's recommendation and concerns, and I guess my only contention there would be that the definition of proactive is not really being utilized appropriately. I understand that the argument that the information is being brought to me, but it is past tense information when the phone has already been destroyed. Again, if this sanction is not appropriately severe enough to help Mr. Bowman understand the behaviors that are appropriate and the behaviors that will end up in his reincarceration, then that lengthy, severe sentence that counsel is describing when he's on probation supervision, we may not have that same level of deterrence there. It really wasn't proactive to tell me that he had destroyed a phone in a wood stove, that he was thinking about looking up child-related material on it. It's retroactive, and I had no ability to search that phone in violation of multiple conditions. So that's all I'd have on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel, anything further?
Just that's the amount of time that Hunter has served, I think, sufficiently acknowledges the wrongdoing that occurred here.
Thank you. And P.O. Hudabenko.
No, I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Counsel, you're asking anything further?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take a moment before I announce my findings and recommendation.
I think that Mr. Bowman is an appropriate candidate for discretionary parole. I think that he would benefit from the higher level of supervision prior to his starting that 10 years of probation. Hopefully that he can complete it successfully. Of course, he would have a restriction on pornography and be stipulated to participate in problem sexual behavior treatment in the community, and they would be monitoring his electronics, and he would know internet. Yep. And he would not be able to have contact with minors.
Regarding charge 1 weapons, I make a finding of probable cause based on state's exhibits A and D. Charge 2, search, I make a no finding of probable cause as the state failed to provide sufficient evidence to prove Mr. Bowman's actions meet the elements of this charge. Charge 3, restriction on pornography, I make a finding of probable cause based on state's exhibits A, D, and E. On charge 4, enhanced internet and device monitoring, I make a finding of probable cause based on state's exhibits A, D, and E. On charge 5, problem sexual behavior treatment, I make a finding of probable cause based on state's exhibits A, D, E, and F. I find that the acts are serious enough to warrant revocation, and I have also determined that you should be detained while you wait for your revocation hearing. Your revocation hearing will be scheduled within 60 business days from your return to custody. You will receive a hearing disposition which will have a tentative hearing date listed. Please keep in mind that all hearing dates are subject to change. We are well aware that Mr. Bowman is EOSing in June. So we're going, we have to look at the dates to see when your 60 business date is. As long as it's before your June date, we will have a revocation hearing. Okay. And at that time, a hearing examiner will determine if you violated the conditions of your parole. And if so, a recommendation regarding whether your parole should be revoked will be discussed at that hearing. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much. And this concludes the preliminary hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there you have it. We were able to watch the absolute madness of the DOC for the Connecticut State Department of Corrections. I know that was a little bit redundant, but sometimes I can't help myself. He didn't get another hearing because his EOS date came up. He's out. He's in the public. No more parole supervision, but don't worry, I'm sure he's gonna be fine. He's not gonna do anything ever again to offend against little ones. You know, we us sheeple don't understand things like that. So don't worry. He has 10 years of supervision, 10 years of probation, which, by the way, let's be real, is simply a get out of jail free card. Here he is on special parole with somebody watching him. He has a phone which he lights up in a wood stove. What do you think was on it? It just takes one bloody guess. You know, his attorney, I get that he has a job to do, but how he does it with a straight face. I mean, I guess we can't see his face. We don't really know. He might be laughing through his hands. But yeah, there was nothing on there. There was nothing on the phone. He burnt it just because. If you believe that he simply burnt his phone because what was the reason? He didn't want the temptation to use it. I don't even know. He destroyed it because he didn't have anything to hide. No, not because he had anything to hide. But he just, I don't even understand. Like you try to bend your brain into understanding why it is like, and you know, the PO officer and the attorney, they're being so cordial, they're being so nice, you know, whatever, okay, it's this, but like it's just like you're out of your mind. You're all out, you're this, and so here's my point. He doesn't catch new charges. Police don't investigate him to say what's going on here, and then it's simply like an infraction. It's an infraction for violating parole for having a phone. And why it's a get out of jail free card is when he's on probation for 10 years. We've seen this over and over and over again. We know better. We know that he can go and violate probation. It will not mean for 1 second that he will serve 10 years in prison. It means he'll get probably a suspended sentence with more probation time. And then he can violate that probation and he'll get another suspended sentence with more probation time. We've seen it where the probation times can reach almost, I'm not exaggerating, probably a lifetime of prison. But you just get more probation, more probation, more probation, more probation until, you know, finally he actually offends against a little one, and then he'll get a slap on the wrist sentence that has nothing to do with all the years he's backing on probation. But Connecticut would probably categorize this man as a success story. I have no doubt that data that tracks these offenders of this nature will consider this man as a success story. And that's why one should always keep in mind when you're reading data, when they say, oh, sex offenders, their chance of reoffending, it's only like 5%. I mean, you don't believe me, just look at the static 99 data set, which all 50 states use. There is no way that they look at a violation like this and say, oh, this person failed. You know, it's freakonomics. It's all manipulation of the data. And, you know, we called it. We called it in the first hearing, didn't we? But he's out. He's in the public. He has no parole supervision, just probation. And so we won't see him again in the system, maybe in the news. I did do a quick search before running this, didn't see him, but he's out there in the wild, and it's really releasing a shark into the fish bowl. And the shark is hungry, and it's just a matter of time. Thank you, Lady Holly, Servicer, for connecting the dots in these hearings. Check out the Return of playlist to see more like this. And with that, I'll let you go.